Welcome back to the Move Better podcast. Today I have with me Sarah Leong-Lopes, who is a physical therapist, and she owns Phase Physical Therapy and Wellness out of California. And we're going to talk today all things pickleball. I'm
Yeah,
hoping to learn a little bit more about pickleball in itself, and hopefully talk about some injuries and how and different things that Sarah's been seeing in the pickleball world. So welcome, Sarah.
thank you, Laura. I'm super excited to be here.
How did you get into working with pickleballers and tell me a little bit about your background and how you phase physical therapy and wellness.
Absolutely. So I actually got introduced to pickleball back in 2018, and that was because my parents got super into it. They checked it out one day, and when I came home to visit them, they were like, "You got to try this sport that we just learned about." So that was like my first exposure. But I was still in grad school at the time, so I was like I don't really know if I want to take all this time to like play the sport, because even in just learning about it, I was already very excited and wanting to play a lot. And I knew that I would not be able to balance grad school and playing pickleball at the time, just because I have a very competitive personality and I can easily get addicted to a sport instead of doing my studies. So I didn't really get super involved with it then. But then once I started working as a licensed physical therapist after I graduated, I was noticing I was seeing a lot of pickleball injuries or people who played pickleball coming in, and whether or not the injury was because of pickleball or because they had a pain and it was keeping them from playing pickleball, there was just kind of this common denominator. People were just like, I just want to get back on the pickleball courts. And I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yes.
I hadn't been playing a lot of pickleball again or picked up on it again yet at the time. There was some vicarious attachment to it because my parents are super involved and they're coaches and stuff like that. But as I was going through that time in that clinic and seeing more injuries and people just wanting to get back on the courts, I was like, okay, there's something here. So I started playing pickleball more and was like, oh man, like a lot of these clinicians that some of my clients had said that they'd seen, they don't really understand the sport, and there's some nuances to it because it is different than tennis, which is like what a lot of people think that it's like, but it's also very different. It's different than badminton, different than ping pong, which a lot of people say that it's kind of like a hodgepodge of those sports. And so I said, I really want to help serve the pickleball community specifically, especially since my family loves it and is involved with it, as am I. And also, I have this love for helping people improve their movement. So I decided to start my own business, and that's how Phase Physical Therapy and Wellness came about. That's my private concierge business because I want to go be able to be on the courts with people and help see how they play and help fine tune in real time in the moment, what's going on, why they might not be able to enjoy the sport as much as they like to because of an ache or a pain or anything like that. And so I've been doing that now for the past year and a half, and it's been a great learning experience and far more fulfilling for me personally to be able to help serve my clients right where they want to be on the courts.
That's awesome. I like such a great journey and like following through with that. You actually go to the court to work with people and to assess them there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Okay, really
So
cool.
whether I'm working directly with my client and they're now able to start getting back on the courts and we're fine-tuning stuff on the courts, I'll do it there. But then I also hold workshops or clinics with local parks or local courts just so that players who maybe haven't gotten hurt to the point where they're wanting to get help, or they aren't really thinking about going to see a physical therapist or movement specialist or anything like that, I'm at least able to start giving some education or some tips on court with anybody who signs up in that local park, which is pretty fun too.
Really cool. Yeah. Um, so tell me, like, what kind of injuries or what kind of things are you mentioned, but one, they're either getting injured on the court or have a pain that's stopping them. What kind of things are you seeing that are stopping people from getting out and playing?
Yeah, a lot of in a general sense of the word, a lot of them are overuse injuries. And so that usually comes about because many pickleball players will get really excited. So they'll play a lot of the game, like 5 hours or a day, all at once, and then they'll do it really frequently. So they might be playing like 5, 6, 7 days a week. And those are the people who are like super invested in it. Some people will be playing like 3 hours. It varies. Sometimes they'll play like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. And so there's some people who are really, really into it. So then we'll see a lot of overuse injuries. And many times I'll see like pickleball elbow, which a lot of people know before as tennis elbow. We'll also see a lot of just like knee pain or Achilles tendonitis or plantar fasciitis, and sometimes low back pain because of the posture that some people will play. They'll be hunched over instead of in a more efficient posture for their gameplay. So a lot of those pains are just overuse. Maybe a muscle is being used too much, or the joints are, having to withstand a lot of repetitive forces consistently. So that's one camp where we will see a lot of them. And then on the other side, we have a lot more just kind of acute injuries, whether that's, somebody maybe falling, and that usually happens because people end up feeling younger than we think we are when we play, because the game doesn't feel as fast as it actually can be sometimes. So people will, have improper footing or improper footwear for that matter, and they'll trip and they'll fall or they'll roll their ankle and sprain their ankle. And so we'll see some acute injuries in that sense, or like hamstring strains, or Achilles tendon strains. So that's like instead of the tendonitis, they'll be getting those strains there, or just like ankle sprains, knee sprains, stuff like that. And a lot of that is happening either because people haven't ramped up properly for the sport, or they are using improper gear to kind of help their body move efficiently, or they're playing a little bit too aggressively for their physicality at that time, and so they end up getting hurt. And then sometimes there's just some anticipated accidents that can happen, but a lot of times I find it's because people are either not warmed up properly, or they are overextending their body too soon, and so then they end up getting hurt that way. We'll also see a lot of, I forgot to mention, a lot of shoulder tendonitis and stuff in the overuse camp, more so than the acute camp.
I would think the overuse end didn't realize people would get out and play 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night. That's hence to me. But I think, because it's been like the biggest growing sport, of recent years, that like everybody's like trying to get out and just trying to like just jumping in and playing without really having, and they may have been not couch potatoes necessarily, but not in that. And like anytime you get into any sport, you need to like train a little bit differently, no matter, even if it's an easy sport to pick up,
Absolutely. I mean, even with, mental skills or that we, work on, if you have somebody who's really, really good at computer skills, and then you put them in front of a pottery wheel, they're not going to know what to do. Even if you can kind of get understanding on some basic movements, you're not going to be able to have the skill or know-how or the reaction time to do what you need to. Or vice versa, if you have somebody who's really good with hands-on stuff, like a physical therapy, like we're experiencing, right? We're physical therapists and we're really good at doing that stuff there, but then you put a computer in front of us with automations and coding, and we're like, I have no idea what to do. So it's kind of similarly in that skill, but on the physicality side, if you've been at a computer a lot, or you haven't been doing a lot of that high level kind of activity, then if you move into pickleball, your body's like, oh, I can quote unquote learn this pretty quickly, but the body also is not able to pick up quite as fast as maybe our brain can learn how to play.
So do you have some tips for people who let's take this two different ways, which is it may be the same tips, but one for somebody who's new and is going to start trying pickleball to kind of get their body ready and conditioned, and then second for somebody who's jumped in and is going at it, but to potentially reduce their risk of injury as they continue to go forward and play a lot?
This is a great question. I love this question. To kind of answer both of them at the same time, and then I'll go more specifically. The first and most important framework piece that I like to offer people is just getting to know your body, getting to dialogue with your body a little bit more. A lot of us kind of work on autopilot and are very, reactionary, that we don't actually know what our body is telling us, or if our body's ready to go or not. So whether you're new in the sport or if you've been playing already, I like to encourage people to do stuff like dynamic warm-ups, because that helps to wake up your body, wake up the muscles, get the blood flowing, help the nervous system to kind of start paying attention to the increase in activity level. And then from there, we're able to have that better communication between brain and body as to, okay, as I'm doing my warm up, oh, I'm noticing I'm a little bit tight in my ankle today. Let's make sure that I'm not working that too hard. Or, oh, like I do dynamic warm up. Oh, I can actually kind of feel a little bit more in my knee today. I'm going to make sure not to pound too much when I'm running around. And that just kind of gets us a little bit more tuned in there. And when I say dynamic, I'm not saying like, oh, just go in front of the net and like dink around, play in front of the net for a little bit. You want to be warming up in any movement that you anticipate doing in the sport. So pickleball is not just about dinking. And especially if you're new, it can be challenging to control the ball for a dink. So you might be hitting from the baseline more. So warm up more baseline shots, warm up your serves, warm up running forward in that transition zone from the baseline up to the non-volley zone or the kitchen area. Practice moving side to side, move in multi-directional movements, because we don't only move forward and then left and right. We're going at angles. We're stepping backwards at times, and we have to run around every now and then. So warm up the motions that you're anticipating doing in a pickleball game at a sub-maximal level or some sort of preparatory level. And in that, your body will say, okay, I'm getting ready to do all these different movements, all these different motions. And then you'll be more in tune with your body if a specific direction, a specific motion is feeling a little bit less accessible to you at that time. Whether it's, oh, maybe I can't lift my arm up all the way. Well, now I know. So I'm not going to go try to throw my arm up for a smash or anything like that. So dynamic warm-ups on the front end, whether you're new, it's easier to start building that habit if you're new. So please start doing that now. And then if you've already been playing, then please start implementing it, which I know can be challenging because sometimes we show up at the court and they're already saying, hey, we need a fourth. Like, can you come run and play? And then you'll play cold turkey and your body won't have that awareness. But if you can either warm up at home before you get in your car even, or right when you get to your parking spot before you walk over to the courts, or even just tell your friends as soon as you approach the courts, be like, hey guys, give me just 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes to just do some basic movements to warm up my body. That will do you a lot of favors in the long run. And then on the other side of the warm up, once you're done playing your game, you can do a cool down, kind of imitating those same motions, but slowing them down so that your body can then ramp down. And that can help decrease the chances of getting stiff and sore and having all those it'll be more helpful for your recovery after you play the game. Because if you just do all these high activity and then you go sit on a couch for another 3 hours watching your favorite TV show, sipping a glass of wine or something like that, then your body's going to it won't know what to do because you're going from 100 to 0 and there's no transition time in between. So the bottom line is give your body a chance to transition between not doing the activity to doing the activity of pickleball. And then again, from doing the activity of pickleball and winding down from there.
That's, yeah. The few people that I've worked with tend to there's no space to warm up, or there's no really like time to warm up when I get there. And I think that's the biggest, I encourage people to do it right when they get there. I like getting out of the car or saying, hey, give me 5 minutes. I just got to get through a quick warm up rather than warming up at home, because then you're sitting in a car for however long to get there. But, I think that's a big, I think that's a huge piece, like being able to get in. And I like the change of direction, in anticipating, like getting your body ready and like checking out what it's feeling like, because then you can adapt and, adapt what you need to do. I think that's an excellent tip and a cue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to some extent, intuitively, our body and our brains like having transition time between things. Like nobody really loves to just crawl out of bed and then immediately have to start working at their, job, right? We have a morning routine that we'll try to get through. Some people are very, very diligent about giving themselves the time to get ready in the day, but we can feel how rushed and how scattered we can get if we're running late and we have to just throw everything in the car. Our body basically experiences the same thing if we're just going from not doing an activity straight into pickleball. It's this rushed transition, and so we don't have a chance to ramp into it. And so I as fun as pickleball is and as rewarding as it is, there are certain situations where you don't want to just jump in, especially if you're doing it frequently. You need to give your body that transition time.
Do you find that it's different? Because you can play two people or four people.
Yes,
Right?
that's correct. So you can play singles or you can play doubles.
Yeah. And so I would anticipate if you're playing singles, you're going to be running a little bit more and bigger ranges of movement than with doubles. So you might
Absolutely.
those bigger motions.
And even in that, we will see different types of injuries present because so when you're playing singles, the nice thing is you always know that every ball that comes to your side of the court is yours. You always have to hit it no matter what. So from there, you might get hurt from overextending yourself because you have to get to the ball every time, depending on how much your opponent's making you run. And then on the other hand, when you're playing doubles, you have to be really good at communicating with your partner. And depending on that communication efficiency, you might have your partner will miscommunicate on whose balls it is, so then you'll both try to go get it at that last split second because you didn't hear them say mine or something, and then maybe you'll stop on a dime and your body's not ready for it. So you can see not necessarily collisions, but you'll see people getting injured because they're suddenly changing or halting their momentum or direction, or they're overextending themselves because, oh, that my partner's not getting it, I got to go grab it now too. So there's a lot more of that quick reaction time that sometimes can be challenging to adjust for in doubles compared to singles, where you are responsible for every single one. So you have to hustle to get every single one. So even between singles and doubles, we can see different types of injury trends as well.
Do you are there things that people can do outside of getting to the court? Like, how important is doing a regular strength and conditioning routine? That's kind of a silly question because I think that's important for everything. But you know, do you find the people that you have to encourage the pickleballers to do something else in addition to be able to build their strength? And is there how responsive are they to that?
Yeah. So if I'm talking with somebody who's maybe only playing pickleball once a week and is, just doing it to, hang out with a friend once a week and every now and then, usually for them, I won't necessarily give them an in-depth program or anything like that. I'll just advise them like, hey, make sure that when you're playing pickleball, that's not the only time you're doing activity. Sprinkle in other activities throughout your week. And especially if you have a history of any sort of ache or pain or a tendency to feel discomfort in a certain part of your body, then, spend a little bit more time with that. If I'm talking with someone who is playing pickleball more regularly, like 3 or more times in a given week, then I usually will advise them to do more strengthening exercises, especially targeting like your hips and your glutes, as well as your shoulder girdle and your scapular stabilizers or your shoulder blade area, as well as, the core and the floor. A lot of people think, oh, I just need to work my abs. No, you're wanting to work that whole unit, both abs, back, diaphragm, pelvic floor, they all need to be coordinated together. So I'll usually at the very least advise people to start targeting that, because if you can have that stability, then that also can help you out a whole bunch once you're out on the court, both with coordination and with power and with injury prevention. And then again, if they have more specific issues, like maybe they've sprained their ankle multiple times, or maybe they're dealing with pickleball elbow or knee pain or something like that, then, I would advise them to, like, at least 3 times a week, start working on the area surrounding that joint. So if it's your knee, you want to work your thigh muscles and your lower leg muscles, but then also working on the joints on either side. So your hip and your ankle, especially for the leg, because that's what we're pushing off of for most of us when we're playing pickleball, right? So we need to make sure that those pillars are set up well. Or if you have pickleball elbow, then work your shoulder girdle to have the strength there. And then the muscles in your elbow are also controlling the wrist stability. So you need to make sure that you're strengthening your grip and stuff like that. So for them, I would usually give them or advise them to look into programs or exercises that will help strengthen both around that specific area, and then maybe one joint up and one joint down, or closer to the trunk or further away from the trunk. And usually at least 3 times a week for people that are maybe playing like 3 times a week already. So on the off days of pickleball, doing some strengthening programming, or if they have a known ache or pain or injury, doing maybe like a 10-15 minute quick, like I call them muscle wake up exercises, just to help engage those muscles more specifically in their dynamic warm up before going out onto the courts. But largely, more and more people could definitely benefit from some sort of strengthening program, especially on the off days when they're not out on the court. If you're playing on the court every single day, then that's a situation where you have to work with somebody specifically to find what your body needs and what routine your body needs, because you also need to give yourself time to recover between any exercise programs that you do, or even when you are out playing pickleball. Recovery time is just as important as the actual training.
Yeah, I think that is a key in all. I mean, I think we don't, from the outside watching sports on TV or whatever, we don't realize how much recovery is important in performance.
Right.
In preventing injuries, but also in performance, and allowing your body to recover and do better. So I think that's a key takeaway right there. And hydration.
Yeah. And hydration. Yeah. Hydration, the way that you fuel your body is very, very important. Absolutely.
Before I want to know, what do you have going on, and what do you have coming up? But one quick question: what's dinking?
Yes. So dinking is basically a type of play or a type of shot that you make when you're in front of the net, and you're in front of the net. There's like a line. There's this non-volley zone. So basically in front of the net line, right in front of the net, is this non-volley zone, meaning you can't hit the ball out of the air while you're standing in that zone. If you're outside of that zone, you can hit the ball out of the air. But if you're standing in that zone, or the ball is in that zone, it must bounce first if you're going to hit it in standing in that zone. And so dinking is a close quarters game play or close quarters shot where people are just standing around the non-volley zone, or the kitchen, as some people will call it, and they're just hitting it back and forth over the net in that really short distance. So they call it dinking, because you're just going to dink the ball over the net, as opposed to, longer shots like at the baseline and such.
Cool. 2 new terms. Also, the kitchen is another term that I just learned today. So
yeah, absolutely.
So tell us what do you have going on, as far as programs, and where are you? Are you at workshops and any of that stuff coming up soon?
Yes. So I'm based out of San Luis Obispo County in California. I have workshops that I host in Arroyo Grande currently, and in Nipomo. So if you are in those areas and you're interested in participating in an injury prevention and recovery workshop, then you can come hang out and see us there. And then I also have some online programming that is in the works. I have an ankle sprain recovery program that I'm developing on the Phase app, which I will send you the link to, Laura. I have an app that's coming out so you can use this sort of step-by-step, day-by-day programming for your ankle injury. And I'm also working to find some people to help me basically be the beta testers of the pickleball elbow program that I have upcoming. And so this app is available on your mobile device, and you can also pull it up on your computer or your tablet. You can cast it to your TV, which I love because you can literally use it anywhere that you're at, which is cool. So that's been my main focus lately as far as the online world, to give people more and more. I have not yet put them on the calendars yet, but I will be hosting some webinars in the upcoming months on each of these different injuries. So if you're interested in hearing more about how to recover from injuries and improve your performance by recovering from your injuries, or you're interested in checking out this app that's going to have these programming and exercises and like FAQs for how to recover or make the most of your recovery time and performance time, then feel free to reach out to me and I will be sure to connect you. You can find me at www.connectwithphase.com, or you can always find me on Instagram or Facebook at Phase PT and Wellness, and the username is the same on all of those media.
Cool. Perfect. And that'll all be in the show notes. And so you can refer back when you need to and reach out to either one of us. And I can connect you also to Sarah as you need it.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I learned a lot, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And I think I think you're doing a big service to people. I think it's this just going to keep growing. So I think people need to really learn about how they can improve their bodies, move better with their bodies. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Laura. I love chatting with you, and I'm excited. Maybe we'll get to play pickleball the next time I see you in person too.
There's a introductory course coming up in my town, so I'm going to see if I can look into that.
Yay! Oh, I'm so excited. Yes.
Thanks. That concludes today's episode, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. So go get the day.